Welcome to our Ford Marketing Group. I'm Jack Holtz. Other group members are Esther, Sean, Bazile, Casey, and Haley. Ford Motor Company, otherwise commonly known as Ford, is an American automaker which has consecutively been within the top 5 largest automakers worldwide. Ford would go on to be one of the most profitable companies in the world and even to be one of the few to survive the 1930s Great Depression. Ford is a family-owned business and has stayed within the family ownership for over 110 years. With its starting location and headquarters based out of Michigan, back in the early 1900s, Henry Ford, the man who started the Ford Motor Company, set out to build a simple, well-designed, reliable, and affordable machine that the average American worker could afford and handle themselves. At this point, Ford had been the world's most formidable automaker, and by this time, World War II was about to come out. The company was happy to help support the war effort, and Ford was a major component in President Roosevelt's arsenal of democracy. Ford produced about 400,000 tanks and trucks, 27,000 engines, 270,000 Jeeps, and over 8,000 B-24 Liberators, and hundreds and thousands of gun mounts and machine tools. By the time 2008 hit and its economic decline, both Ford and GM both took major losses. High U.S. healthcare costs, increasing gasoline prices, and eroding market shares were some factors in Ford's massive decline. It was here where Ford made a new slogan, the Way Forward, which also included resizing their company to match market realities and coming out with a newer line of inexpensive, fuel-efficient cars. Ford ended up closing 14 factories and cutting 13,000 jobs because of this. Ford also sold Jaguar, Land Rover, Aston Martin, and in December of 2008, President Bush announced an emergency rescue plan to aid in the top 3 motor companies, which at this point were Chrysler, GM, and Ford, to help prevent the collapse of the country's struggling auto industry. The president's plan was to give $13.4 billion of government loans to the Asset Relief Program. Chrysler and GM both ended up immediately taking the loans. However, Ford reportedly had enough money to avoid bankruptcy. Ford had experienced increased sales and market shares since 2009 and has reportedly been recovering ever since the 2008 recession. As of 2017, Ford had over $156.7 billion in global revenue. Ford sold more than 7 million automobiles, employed over 130,000 people, and had approximately 90 plants and facilities worldwide. To this day, Ford's marketing plan to give the best, reliable, and affordable machine to the average consumer is still in effect. The company did take a dip with the presence of COVID-19. However, Ford is still nowhere near where they were back in 2008. With the grip COVID has around 2020, Ford made a goal to donate and disperse over 100 million masks by 2021. So far, Ford had made over 50,000 ventilators and is right on target with masks. Ford is on the cutting edge of production and getting more electric vehicles on the road, including adding plug-ins worldwide.
So there are many external environmental forces that are impacting Ford Motor Company. Some include the socio-cultural attitude on climate change, the legal and regulatory forces that are changing emissions, and the constantly evolving technology behind our vehicles. In the socio-cultural sense, the majority of people across the globe are beginning to value sustainability more than ever before. This value on sustainability is even extending to the cars that consumers are buying. So over this last summer, Ford updated their aspirational goals on how they will act on climate change within their 2020 sustainability report. These goals included achieving carbon neutrality by 2050, achieving zero air emissions from their facilities, and using 100% locally sourced renewable energy for all manufacturing plants globally by 2035. Increasingly, government bodies across the world are pledging to end their contribution to climate change by creating laws, regulations, and orders to reduce emissions, achieve carbon neutrality, and more. The Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, is a government agency that sets restrictions on vehicle emissions. The state of California, for example, has even stricter regulations on vehicle emissions than the EPA does, and Ford has had to follow suit in response to this by only selling Ford cars that fit within those emission standards in California. Competitively, there are many car companies that are utilizing new technologies to create smarter vehicles. Ford is using this technology by trying to scale up their electric vehicle lines, expand electric vehicle charging stations, and introduce self-driving vehicle lines, and more. Ford is using the slogan, "Creating Tomorrow Together," to exemplify how they're creating smarter vehicles by using innovative and disruptive technology.
Since the Ford Motor Company started in the early 1900s, they've strived to make the lives of every working American easier and less stressful while still progressing through each day. Ford's market is targeted towards those categorized between the lower middle class and the higher middle class, which is the reason for why middle class and higher middle class, which is the reason why you see Ford vehicles all over the world. With more than 1.9 million employees and 68 plus plants worldwide, Ford utilizes these resources in designing, manufacturing, financing, and marketing their automobiles all throughout the world. By continuously producing and enhancing the technology that goes into their vehicles, into their cars, trucks, SUVs, etc., they keep their market open to all customers around the world looking for a reliable source of transportation, whether it comes in the form of luxury or you're just your simple work car. Ford uses many different forms of distribution to get their products out to the average American worker, such as direct selling agents, or DSA, authorized dealerships and service centers, resellers, and even includes e-commerce sites to make it easier for anybody to look for their specific vehicle. Through their many ways to be more personal with people, Ford aims to become the world's most trusted automotive producer by providing consumers vehicles and services to create a better world. Not only does Ford manufacture gas and diesel burning vehicles, they've also, over the years, been researching and developing smart vehicles. Their plan is to continue focusing on the development of new powertrain systems and new fuel options into their vehicles. They also plan to pursue their goal of creating a brand new high-value self-driving vehicle business to lessen their carbon footprint. While doing this, Ford wants to manufacture the most trusted technology that will continue to deliver an ongoing source of revenue. With the sleek new 2021 all-electric Mustang Mach-E, they continue to show promise of a future with electric vehicles to continue their reach towards a more sustainable, zero-emissions future. Ford seems to be stepping in the right direction when it comes to making quality electric vehicles as well as their typical gas and diesel burning automobiles.
So to break down the marketing mix for Ford, the products and services, obviously Ford sells mostly vehicles, but they also sell buses, tractors, parts for all of these, and they have financing options as well. Ford breaks down their products into 3 different sectors in their income statement, that being automotive, Ford Credit, and mobility. And in the first half of 2020, the revenue was highest for automotive, being 48 billion, followed by credit at only 6 billion, and mobility at a mere 23 million. For the place, Ford has plants all around the world, with the most being 8 plants in the United States, followed by 7 plants in China. The plants in North America are the most profitable, normally followed by Europe and China. For promotion, Ford has multi-channel website design where they have multiple websites depending on your interest. They also use lots of traditional media like TV and radio ads, and are beginning to try and increase their social media presence with the times. For price, obviously cars are often very expensive and something that you don't necessarily purchase often. So for that reason, they use a market-oriented price strategy as well as a premium pricing strategy so that the prices can change with the market fluctuations while allowing Ford to have a wide variety of products at different prices for a wider variety of consumers.
To start off, William Pride and O.C. Farrell define SWOT analysis as an organization's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The key to conquering weaknesses and threats within a company is to convert them into part of their strengths and opportunities. One of the most predominant strengths of the Ford company has been the Ford F-Series. The F-Series has brought about major success for the company. To define the success further, Ford F-Series was rated the best-selling vehicle in America during the year of 2017. This is not their only strength, however. Ford's strong brand image and diversity in their product line are also notable strengths of the company. This diversity ensures that every consumer is able to find the vehicle that is right for them. Looking at the company's weaknesses, Ford is extremely dependent on their market in the United States. With the use of international marketing, consumer loyalty can be gained around the world, converting this weakness into a strength. Secondly, Ford's amount of recalled products is also known to be a weakness. While this is not fully unavoidable, reducing the amount of recalls would benefit the company tremendously. Next, I would like to talk about the company's opportunities. With advances in technology, Ford has numerous opportunities. The two most notable being electric cars and 3D printing of parts. Ford's advancement into the world of electric cars would give the company a late mover advantage, allowing them to perfect their electric car model. In contrast, 3D printing of parts would give Ford a first mover advantage. 3D printing of parts would decrease the labor shortages and the time needed to manufacture parts. Finally, we look towards Ford's threats. The most obvious threat being the competitive automotive industry. Brands such as Chevy, Chrysler, and Dodge, along with Ford, are all looking for the next big thing to push them ahead of the competition. Using the opportunities previously discussed will help Ford achieve this. In addition to this, the numerous regulations set in place for vehicle companies also creates a threat to Ford. However, Ford could find a way to use this to their advantage. For example, marketing the safety of a Ford vehicle is a major selling point for consumers.
So when comparing Ford versus GM, the two companies are nearly identical with their marketing. They both have social media presence. They're both working on environmentally friendly vehicles. They both have a financing branch, and they both make and sell parts for their vehicles, as well as they both have affordable and luxury models. One of the main selling points that consumers have noted about GM is that GM cars are the only ones with OnStar available. As far as popularity, GM is more popular in the States, and they have 17% of the market share stateside, whereas Ford only has 14.4% of the market share. But Ford is actually more popular internationally. They have a third of the market share of 5.8%, and GM doesn't place in the top 3 with their market share internationally. GM is actually pulling out of the international markets in order to focus more on markets that are profitable for them. They have completely exited India within the last few years. And earlier this year, they announced a complete exit from Thailand, both in production and in sales, and they're also trimming their presence in Australia and New Zealand. So one of the things that Ford, actually 2 things that Ford could look at from GM to possibly expand on is withdrawing from less profitable markets to focus on the more profitable ones, and also potentially exploring something similar to OnStar with the combination of smart cars becoming more popular and the abundance of smartphones in people's lives now.
So our new product innovation for Ford is that they should begin standardizing 3D printing in the automobile industry. And Ford actually has already begun 3D printing in the automobile industry. That bottom left picture is a piece, actually the largest 3D printed automobile piece in the world to date. And it was printed by Ford, but this is a very experimental section of their company. And we believe this is something that should be implemented on a larger scale, giving smaller shops the ability to do this. That printer right there is one of the largest ones I could find. It's by Desktop Metal Production. It's by Desktop Metal, and it is the production system, and it's valued at $750,000 to $1 million. So obviously, this is something that would take a lot of investment, but we think it's a good goal for Ford. Some marketing objectives to go along with this is that it would give Ford an advantage in the future of sustainable transportation by being able to deliver unique parts on a rapid basis, which gets into the next objective, giving customers direct access to almost instant repairs and customizations. Obviously, this dramatically increases the speed in which things could be designed and repaired. And a long-term objective for Ford could be obtaining the materials used for this metal 3D printing from recycled sources, like those piles of old cars that we all have seen around. And that picture on the bottom is actually the custom racing truck that 3D printed part was implemented into. So just thought that was pretty cool and unique.
So as Sean said, the product is the 3D printed parts. The place would be the Ford plants and Ford certified auto repair shops. As 3D printing becomes more common, it will be easier to have smaller 3D printers, which would make it more accessible for the smaller independent Ford certified shops. One of the things is having a 3D printer that could be financed through Ford for the shop could be a requirement for having the certification from Ford as being a Ford certified shop.
All right, moving on to the price. When dealing with the price aspect of the 3D printing, we're expected to see a slight increase in the cost of the parts before it starts to level off. And this is due to the fact that just because the machines are so expensive that they can cost anywhere from thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars. And as Sean said, that one can cost up to $1 million. Considering the fact that price is the most flexible out of the 4 Ps, we don't expect to see an issue with Ford's ability to bounce back from the initial price increase. Moving on to the promotion of the product, Ford will need to have 2 target markets. Those target markets are consumers and auto repair shops. In order to target auto repair shops, Ford would have the ability to demonstrate the 3D printing machines at the Ford certified shops quite easily, just due to the fact that the Ford representatives are already checking in with these shops regularly. This would be the most effective way for Ford to market this new idea effectively. Secondly, we have to look at the consumer's point of view. While consumers might not be all that pleased with the new pricing on the parts, they will be happy to hear that 3D printing would provide a quicker way to get the consumer's vehicles back in their hands. This is a big selling point due to the fact that consumers want their vehicles repaired and back to them as quickly as possible. With the implementation of 3D printing, Ford can offer the quickest return rate on the vehicles to the consumers.
To implement this new strategy, Ford must acquire the right 3D printers to be able to print their own vehicle parts. 3D metal mill printers are going to be what Ford will need, and these printers can be bought through a variety of companies. Doing this will also create a new partnership with Ford and another company. Once Ford has acquired the partnership, 3D metal printers can be dispersed throughout Ford dealerships across the country and then the world. Auto body repair shops could also possibly acquire these printers through Ford if partnerships are required. The printing process itself is somewhat slow, being that it does take a while to 3D print something. However, once the printer is operational, its diagnostics can continue to run overnight and essentially can always be making something at all times. The printer will need metals such as aluminum, steel, and copper, which are what most common metal parts are used in the process of making car parts. Ford would want to be careful to who they give out these printers to, as Ford does not want to help the competition and have other auto repair shops use the printers provided by Ford making parts for other car companies such as GM or other automotive companies. Once implemented, other companies will soon to be thinking about doing the same thing as what Ford is doing, giving them a late mover advantage.
Introducing and implementing a rapid manufacturing process, also known as 3D printing, into the Ford factories all around the world could change the way the company performs all over the place. Although the printers may increase production costs in some aspects, they can also increase quality of the products and enable the ability to produce more intricate parts without all of the other processes used before the integration of 3D printing processes. In the long run, it will save a lot of time and money, therefore increasing the production rate of these parts and allowing them to be more available to the public. This will open up business to other car manufacturers to buy their products and possibly even open a whole new sector of the manufacturing business. Today, the Ford Motor Company uses 3D printing extensively as part of its product development process and is currently exploring more ways to integrate the technology into its production lines.